I cropped my graphic so that I have the hand and the bag of clay separately, and I made the hand part smaller, and I'm going to layer it over there. I just wanted to show you that you can actually do some image compositing in your design program if you've got your background transparency set correctly. So let's say this is the design that I wanted to go with in terms of the graphic. I'm going to place some text, and then I'm going to show you what the export looks like. My text is going to be the same as it was in the previous assignment, meaning I have the choice of heading, subheading, or body text. You can get a lot more complicated in terms of your styles, but that requires one of the paid versions. So we do have at least some limitations in terms of preset styles that we're dealing with, but you can create and add more styles and modify them. So my heading in my particular case is going to be where I'm going to put my business name. I'm going to work on that some more. I'm actually going to use a little bit of each one of these to create the different elements that I want on screen. And mostly because it just quickly gives me differentiated text areas that I can quickly place and move around. Okay, once you get your text elements, definitely consider your alignment and so forth. Right now, I've got mine kind of all over the place, but I think I want to right align these because of the placement of my graphic. That's going to be a better option for me. So I'm going to call my business Messy Hands, which is a stupid name, but I'm just doing it for the purposes of this demo. So, and it sort of fits with the graphic that I've come up with. I'm going to type in what I want it to say. I'm making the text smaller. I may change it in a second. My subheading in my case is going to be my name. And it needs to be smaller than the title is, because otherwise it tends to be confusing as to what the focal point is. If I wanted to give myself a title in addition to my name, I would do that just below. And then right now where mine says body text, that is going to ultimately be my contact information that I'm going to put in here. Now, I don't like the black against this darker blue. I've got white outlining on my graphic to the left. So a natural option might be to try reverse text, which means white against a dark background. It may not be a dark enough background to work. It actually seems like it's okay. And I might be inclined to do that for all of these elements. Just keep in mind that contrast is important, and as such, you cannot have dark text against a dark background, but you also can't have light text against a light background, so you got to play around with it. You also want contrast in terms of text sizes and text styles, but you don't want 5 different text styles on something like a business card. So I'm going to consider what I want for my business name. It's sort of a weird name, so I think a font that is at least a little bit less plain than Open Sans is probably not a bad idea. As you notice, there's not just a boatload of options. You are working somewhat from a limited palette. I might like that slightly better. I don't know. None of them are very, quote, messy. It might be a scenario where I'm not finding a perfect choice, but fine, I'll do that one. And then decide what you want to do for your rest of your typefaces. They do need to contrast in some meaningful way, whether one serif and one sans serif or something along those lines. Or maybe I go away from having that one in bold. You do have some additional choices that would allow you to distinguish between them. I've gone with what is effectively a slab serif for my main title. So going with something sans serif for the subheading and so forth might not be a bad approach, and one that's a little bit less bold would certainly contrast a little bit. Not sure that's the best combo, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. All right. And then figure out where else, if at all, I'm going to use the title the main title font. My body text is going to include all of the relevant contact information that my card should have on it. So oops. So I could put an email address. I could put a phone number. And you can decide, do you want parentheses around the area code? That is considered sometimes to really break up a design. So an alternate to that can be using a dot or a period in between certain of those elements so you don't have that big blocky parentheses grouping. Do you want a web address? And mine isn't going to display at the moment because the area is not big enough. So I need to stretch it out. And then you have to consider the spacing. Right now, it is a little bit too loose. It could be tightened up by decreasing the spacing. And then tweak it until you're happy with it. Does it need any other elements? Could it benefit from an icon or something like they're showing us various buttony options? We've got tables that could go in there, and certainly the graphical elements, which include things like lines. So I'm going to add a line just to see what I think. I'm not sure it's a good call, but it is in there. And you can change the colors and so forth. All right, so this is what I'm going to call my, quote, finished card. And I'm ready to export this now in such a way that it can be turned in. I'm going to stop and restart with just the export piece as a separate video.